Welcome to the Rich Report, a podcast with news and information on high performance computing. Today, my guest is from Xyratex. We have Ken Claffey. He is the Senior VP and General Manager of their ClusterStor business unit. So, Ken, welcome to the show today.
Thank you very much, Rich. It's great to be here.
Well, thanks for coming on. You know, I understand you guys have a product announcement, and what I thought we'd do is just go through your slides quick, and then we'll do a Q&A at the end.
Okay, sounds like a plan. So today we're actually announcing a new product, an extension of the ClusterStor business, which is the ClusterStor 1500. And it's a new product specifically designed to meet the needs of the departmental scale-out storage segment of the overall HPC market. If you look at what we are really talking about here, Rich, an interesting term that has often been used around that departmental segment, it's often been referred to as the missing middle, right? That segment that is somewhat unknown, that sits in between users who are using desktop-side PCs and then those users who are using the highest-end supercomputers. And we know there's a large portion of the market. It's perhaps not as tangible as certainly as the high end, given that it's made up of a relatively large number of smaller users, which obviously is the opposite than the high end, where you've got relatively few but very large users. And one of the barriers that you've had to this market has really around accessibility to the technology. So think of your industrial companies, and Xyratex actually is a great example of that, where you're starting to use a lot of simulation technology rather than in the previous times you were building up a lot of prototypes, for fluid dynamic modeling, etc. And now you've really moved to a more simulation-like modeling, right? So you're not necessarily doing the work, putting it in chambers, checking airflows, etc. You're really doing a lot more simulation work upfront, such that ultimately you're not replacing prototypes, but you certainly want to get to the point that by the time you do that prototype, you've got a higher probability of success. And that's exactly the usage model of which we're seeing permeating in many different types of industries, whether that's across what's broadly termed as digital manufacturing, CAE, etc. And then across oil and gas, seismic analysis, biotech, gene sequencing, and so forth. And really what you look at is, again, these are typically clusters where they're using greater than 32 nodes on the compute side. And really one of the barriers that they've had is really on the storage side, is being able to provide scalable storage solutions that are able to keep up with the flexibility and scalability that you now have with Linux compute-based clusters. And really that's what we focused on. If you look at those, identifying what were those previous barriers, again, lack of affordable HPC technology, too hard to build your own using discrete parts. And that's a little bit of a misnomer. Even if you go and try and build a high-performance storage solution using off-the-shelf components, really what does that look like? You really need to go and get an off-the-shelf server, operating system, then you've got to obviously put in a file system on top of that. And a good example of that is obviously Lustre. And then you've got to load it with drivers, you've got to plug in HBAs, then you've got to go and connect it to ultimately, whether it's Lustre or indeed GPFS, etc. You still need a HA rate subsystem on the back end. So really what we're looking at here is when you try and do that, it takes a lot of time, you're still driving quite a bit of cost in terms of there's multiple discrete parts required. And then how do you actually scale that as a business? How long does it take you to get that system up and running? How do you manage that over a long period of time? And then when it comes to you're adding more compute, how do you scale that system? Or do you have to, at what point does that scalability break? And really what you look at, as we've identified as these kind of opportunities, if you like, is for an affordable engineered HPC storage solution that really addresses the needs of this mid-market. What does that mean? It needs to be pre-built, needs to be obviously HPC, needs to be highly optimized, and indeed efficiency. Again, one of the things you're focusing on this market is around ease of use, right? Ease of use in terms of just when the product arrives, getting it out of the box, getting it the system up and running, and then being able to manage it easily on an ongoing basis, not having to deal with multiple different tools, each one designed to manage one of those discrete components, a single interface that manages everything that you're getting. And then again, one of the things that we said is you really want to be able to take that best of breed technology that's up there being proven at the highest scale of HPC and then make that same technology available to that missing middle, those departmental users. And obviously central to this is really Lustre. And one of the things that we've looked at is, again, Rich, I know you're intimately familiar with Lustre, having recently been at the Lustre user group, one of the things that really struck me there was, again, Lustre continues to dominate at the high end, but there's really almost an untapped opportunity for Lustre as an open source technology to be used broader, beyond just the top 100, Lustre really dominating the top 500. And one of the barriers to that, as we've identified, is really removing some of the complexity, making it easier for those segments, those users, to get access to the power and scalability of Lustre. And they're pretty significant markets. And one of the things that when we first looked at this is like, right, well, how much of that segment is using NFS today? And certainly when you get down in that kind of what's characterized as that workgroup space, certainly NFS dominates and will continue to dominate. But it's really when you start to get into that departmental space, as I mentioned earlier, that are getting into 32 and 64 node clusters and beyond, that's where, as we know, NFS performance doesn't scale linearly, starts to trail off, and it's really where you need the scalability, linear scalability, if you like, that really only Lustre can provide. And that brings us to the product today. So the CS1500 is really designed to solve those problems, alleviate those pain points, and bring the capability that we just described of Lustre to those departmental and divisional users. What does it bring? No compromise in terms of best-in-class, affordable departmental storage, superior ROI. It really works. And how does it deliver that? It delivers because it works out of the box. You've got a single system that will arrive at the customer. All software, all the hardware is already pre-configured. All the customer literally needs to do is plug it in and configure it to their local network, and literally within hours they're up and running, available with terabytes of capacity and then gigabytes per second performance. One of the things that we've also done with this product, as we continue to enhance our management ease of use, we're also providing capability for remote professional services as well. So what I mean by that is, as you get your system and you start to integrate it into your environment, as you're looking to optimize it for your applications, integrate it into your network, etc., we're also providing professional services to enable our customers to do just that. And really the 1500, as I said, it's really purposely built. We designed it from the start to be very focused on cost efficiency. We wanted to take that same technology that we've delivered with the CS6000, which is, as you know, powering some of the fastest storage or file systems and storage systems in the world. Take that same technology from its modular architecture, make the same architecture available, i.e. solving the I/O bottleneck, having linear scalability. When we introduced the 6000, that concept of the SSU, that scalable storage unit, where instead of having discrete servers, discrete RAID controllers, etc., and then all connected to expansion JBODs at the back end, what we've done with this system is, again, taking that SSU concept of where you've got the server together with the operating system, the entire software stack, the data protection RAID controller layer, and then obviously the high density and high capacity enclosures, and integrated all that together into that SSU concept. And what we've done here is taken that same approach, except made it available in a smaller footprint. So what you have now is a 4U SSU, scalable storage unit, that fundamental building block, which kind of contrasts with the CS6000 where we have a 5U84. In this CS1500, we've got a 4U24 SSU building block. One of the other things that we've done is we've also added support for expansion JBODs. So not only can you scale this system horizontally by adding additional SSUs and continuing to scale your performance, in certain applications we found that they may not necessarily need to scale the performance. Each SSU in the 1500 can deliver you up to 1.25 gigabytes a second. So if you want to go to 2.5 gigabytes a second, it's very easy. You just add an additional SSU. But as you want to scale, perhaps you want to add more capacity and not necessarily linearly scale your performance. So one of the features that we've added here is, again, being able to daisy chain expansion JBODs behind a single SSU. That way you're able to vary the ratio of your performance to your capacity to meet the needs of your application. Another piece of innovation that we're delivering with this 1500 is we're doing an additional integration of what we call our CMU. So the CMU includes, for people who are familiar with Lustre, includes your NDS and your MDT storage. So your redundant NDS servers and your MDT and your HA MDT storage. What we also include there is our central management unit, which manages the entire storage cluster. So now what we've done with this, just additional level of integration from what we've done previously, even with the CS6000, is that we've brought that HA management server pair and metadata server pair together, still in the HA environment with a common MDT storage on the back end. And that's housed in a 2U24 system. Again, with the same concept of two embedded servers connected through a backplane, high-speed interconnect, and we're managing all the HA and failover between those two respective servers and their storage pool. So in a nutshell, Rich, that kind of introduced the concept of what we're launching here with the CS1500. The product is actually available to order, and we've actually already received orders from some of our early partners, and you'll see some subsequent announcements from the year or through the year, additional feature enhancements.
Well, great, Ken. I was going to ask you about availability, right? Because Xyratex builds storage devices, and it's delivered through partners, right? OEMs that go out and maybe put their label on it or whatever. Do you know what partners will be offering this solution?
Sure. So you'll see some announcements from us. We're actually in final qualification with a number of our partners, and not wanting to jump the gun, but I think you'll see announcements from those partners in the not too distant future.
Yeah. And then, talking about these barriers to use, right? I mean, Lustre has this reputation as being difficult to implement and manage, right? So how do you tackle that? Is that with the management unit and a GUI, or how do you go about that?
There's a couple of pieces to that, and I often hear this, and I'll say one of the things that I standardly say, and then I'll specifically address your question. Okay. There's a lot of people say, Lustre's very complex, Lustre's not reliable. There's a reality here that if you take any piece of software and you deploy it on a heterogeneous hardware environment, and when I say hardware, that includes, you've got firmware, you've got operating systems, you've got BIOS, IPMI stacks, etc., and expect it to work, that's just not going to happen. You can't do that with a Windows operating system. There's no piece of software in the world that you can just take, plug it on a piece of hardware, and it will work perfectly scalable without issue, right? If that was the case, quite frankly, there wouldn't be an IT industry. So one of the things that we do with Lustre is obviously, right, we do a lot of pre-qualification. First thing we really do is back at an architectural level, as you can see with all our products, given our deep knowledge that we have not only in storage system design, and that ranges from, quite frankly, obviously with our capital equipment side of things, we understand the disk drive storage media as well as anyone. And then obviously we've been supplying storage platforms, and we're the largest OEM supplier of storage platforms for over 20 years. So storage infrastructure, SaaS domains, all the technology, x86 architectures, etc., we understand really well. And then what we do is obviously the layer on top of that, where we really have its core of ClusterStor is that world-class file system expertise, and then the entire software stack. If you bring those things together from an architectural perspective, from integration, qualification, test, right through to manufacturing, that gives you a very high probability of delivering a great product to a customer. What you also do is you wrap enterprise storage system management around that. You recognize that in the complexity of the world that we deal with these systems, things will go wrong. And when you have a tightly integrated software stack, not only are you better able to handle those difficulties and failures when they do occur, because they will, but then also you're able to get ahead of things and such as give the administrator early warnings of what's going to happen, and then help them through the reporting mechanisms, and of course being able to take steps and actions when things actually do go wrong. Right, what do you do to fix it? And really, it's by bringing all those pieces together in that kind of engineered solution enables you to make Lustre comparable to what I think you would get from some more traditional enterprise class products.
So that begs the question: why Lustre out there in these missing middle shops? I mean, it's all about performance, right?
Yeah, I think that's absolutely what it is about. I think those customers in that space today, what choice do they have? Well, they've got a couple of choices, but they can be broadly looked at into two categories. they can kind of go option A is we will go and buy a traditional NFS-based storage solution. And initially that may solve their problem. But very quickly, as you talk with these customers, you will realize, hang on a second, as we start to grow the size of our compute cluster, as we're able to scale our applications more and more, very quickly they realize the same thing that we identified earlier on at the high end of HPC. They realize that storage has become the performance bottleneck. Well, obviously, just like at the high end of the HPC market, we've proven with Lustre getting to over a terabyte a second that Lustre, together with the underlying kind of ClusterStor technology, can solve that I/O bottleneck. And now what we're doing is saying to customers, right, so before you had option A, you could go buy an NFS-based product. There was always option B that you could try and essentially build up using discrete components, try and create your own solution, again, leveraging the open source technology, such as Lustre, such as other open source file systems. And I think what we're offering is, quite frankly, a happy medium. You can still get the scalability and performance that you want with Lustre, the benefits of an open source file system, the ecosystem that goes with that, but you still get it in the engineered solution benefit that you would typically experience if you're buying another off-the-shelf enterprise class storage device. So you get the same out-of-box experience, excellent management, good reliability, the ability to start solving your problems sooner, but you have the benefits of, I've got the scalability of Lustre, and again, I'm leveraging the best-of-breed open source technology.
Well, Ken, this sounds terrific, and I want to thank you once again for coming on the show today.
No problem, Rich. A pleasure.
You bet. Okay, folks, that's it for the Rich Report. Stay tuned for more news and information on high-performance computing.